Welcome to a brand new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with Danish jazz tenor saxophonist and bandleader Carsten Meinert. I caught wind of his album called To You. It was originally released in 1968 and was just remastered and re-released to a wider world audience in 2015. And it's an amazingly good jazz listen. I caught up with Carsten in his home of Denmark and talked about this album and a great many things, including his friendship with American jazz cats from the 1960s jazz scene like Dexter Gordon. He talked about his teaching, future projects, why he digs jazz, and much more. Please dig this interview, my friends.
My name is Carsten Meinert. I live in Denmark and I have played the saxophone for over 50 years. I still play a little. My entrance into jazz came from the traditional jazz. In 1959, I attended some concerts in a very big concert hall where I heard Louis Armstrong one time and Sidney Bechet another. My family is mostly to opera. I became fond of opera later, but they also liked that kind of jazz, Sidney Bechet, Armstrong, Keith Ory. And my uncle, he gave me some monies to go up and buy a Sidney Bechet record. They didn't have a Bechet record, but they had another with another saxophone player, and that was John Coltrane, and it was giant steps. I listened to it in headphones, and I was mesmerized by the music. I thought this was really something different, but my family didn't like it at all. They said that's weird. But I liked it really much. Later on, I had a schoolmate who has bought the record So What with Miles Davis, and I listened to that a lot. And every time I visit him, he said, no, you can have the records, then you can listen to it at home. Of course I did that, especially the number called Blue and Green. I love that music. Yeah. I didn't think so much of who played it in this time, but I enjoyed the music. Later I met a guy who was into Thelonious Monk, and he introduced me to Monk's music, among Naughty and Ruby My Dear, and I liked that too very much. But it was a little later it came to me, hey man, it's the same saxophone player at Giant Steps, So What, and the Monk things. I thought, this man, he can do anything. He can go anywhere with his music, because there's a big difference between the three kinds of playing the tenor saxophone. When I found out that it was a name that it was John Coltrane, I thought up more about his music. I had the opportunity because I listened to a number called Stella by Starlight. When Miles plays, the drummer, he plays the whiskers. And when Coltrane come in with his very, very, very fine solo, the drummer changed to sticks. And at that moment that happened, I said to myself, Carsten, you must learn to play an instrument. You must have an instrument to learn to play on. I was so fortunate that I had a schoolmate who played in a Scouts band with the trumpet, and I had another mate that has lent a saxophone on a music school. And I lended those two instruments, and I learned to play Stella by Starlight. The trumpet was, and the saxophone was. When I played on the trumpet, it gave me, my lips became very sore because I wanted that particular sound. The saxophone didn't give me that problem, so I chose in the end of it all to play the saxophone. And my friends, they wanted, of course, their instruments back. So I had to get one myself. I entered a music school where I could rent a saxophone, but I was not at age. I was only 16 years or 17. So I wrote my mother's name, and that was not good because, yes, I went to my grandfather and told him what I've done, and he said, okay, I'll pay for the saxophone, and then you come to me once a week and pay me back. And that was the deal. Now I had a saxophone, but my father and mother, they shouldn't know. So there was a place in Copenhagen where there was played a lot of jazz, and that was called Vingården. In English, the vineyard. That was. Jeg ved ikke, hvad et værtshus hedder, undskyld. Sorry. but I had the opportunity to have my saxophone in the cellar down there. And there I met a lot of American jazz musicians also coming to play on this place. Also, the little more famous place called Montmartre, where I also met Dexter Gordon, Ben Webster, Sahib Shihab, Eric Dolphy, and so on. I learned to play by some of this American music. Some of them were very kind to show me something, and some others was not so kind. I learned a little, and that's why I could make that record that, so many years later, and which is coming out now. When I disguised that John Coltrane was one person, the three tenor saxes that I have listened to was one person, it was kind of a shock for me, because I loved them all three, how different they were, but amen.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
So that kind of music, and when he started his own quartet with McCoy Tyner, Elvin Jones, and later Jimmy Garrison, I loved that music so much. So I can say I whipped my band members to play that way. When Stan Getz, when he got 50 years old, we had a surprise for him, because when he thought he should count up to second set, we were 5 or 6 tenor saxophones coming up on the stage playing Happy Birthday to You. And he loved it very much.
Yeah.
And, he was a very kind person, to me anyway.
I want to kind of get an idea of what kind of activity is going on with you lately. I know you were playing a gig last night. What's kind of been going on with you lately?
having an operation in my finger, so I can play better than before. My little finger on the left hand has been curled up, so to say, and I have an operation so I can play the lower tones of the saxophone also. But I have decided I want to play 4 to 5 jobs and then lay off. Yeah.
The way I kind of ran into you is I've heard the re-release of your 1968 album To You. It's an amazing album. And I want to know, how did this get re-released, and how did the jazz world not know about this album for so long?
Nobody told them. It was, you could get it on the libraries, but nobody cared about it until Søren or Andreas Vingård asked me if they could reissue it, and I was happy about that.
What was this album about when you made this album in the 60s? What was why did you make it? What went into this album?
I made it because I thought then that we had something special, and I lent the money from my mother to give it out. And I had calculated if I made 300 exemplars and sold them, the money will come home. And it did. I sold the 300 in a few days.
You have to be just very happy that this album got reissued.
Yes, I am, certainly.
What has the reaction been around not only in Denmark and the United States, but around the globe about your album?
It's been very well taken.
Let me ask you this. In Denmark, what is the jazz scene like?
Oh, we have a really good, nice jazz scene. You learn from a lot of the American musicians who lived here in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. For example, Dexter Gordon. I became myself a very good friend with Dexter Gordon.
How did Dexter feel about leaving the United States and making Denmark his home?
He was happy here. And
Yeah.
he became clean.
Wonderful.
He lived a wonderful life here and was very, very happy to be here.
Have you enjoyed your career? Has it been a satisfying run in jazz for you?
Yes, of course. I played until I was 40 years old, and then I became a teacher on the conservatory in a small town, the fifth town, Esbjerg, here in Denmark, where I was in 9 years and had many pupils, and I had several small orchestras, which was very wonderful for me to work with all the young people.
As a teacher, what do you like to teach your students?
Oh, yes. I want to let them know that not all can be a star, but they can all be happy playing music as an amateur. I can tell you of many. I have about 30 pupils, and 4 of them has become really good musicians and can live by today.
You are also the co-founder of Spectator Records.
Yes, I was. To begin with, very, very good thing and very happy. But I found out that the money that should be paid for the records around never they never got their monies.
Have you been to America and played live here?
I have been to America, and I have just sat in an occasion with Frank Morgan at the Village Vanguard. I became very good friends with Frank Morgan, and he invited me to play along on the scene, and we played what's it called now? Footprints.
Yeah.
Is the name of the melody, and I played a little, and I thought, no, okay, and then they encouraged me to play on, and I said to myself, okay, I'll give them what I have. And I did, and I got a very fine applause. But that's my only gig, but it wasn't a gig. It was just for fun, and it was wonderful.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this real quick. As a man that has dedicated his life to jazz, why do you love jazz?
Yeah, it started because I listened to traditional jazz, Louis Armstrong and things like that when I was very young. And I danced in a club. We had a club where I came to dance, and that drew me into the jazz music. And later on, I tried to listen to some modern jazz also, and it sounded very good. I liked it too, and yes, I like jazz in all forms, I have to say, from Louis Armstrong and up to today. I followed Miles Davis all the way, and I followed John Coltrane also, and many others, of course.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you have any other albums that are going to come out following this re-release here? Any new material that we can look forward to?
I believe there will be one more album from recordings we made at the same time as To You. And then there is an album more called CM Music Train. And this might also come out later.
Wonderful. So,
yes, I think so.
Yeah, I do too. I can't wait to hear more material. I love your music. So I got a question. When you look back on your life that you've spent playing music, how do you want the world to remember you?
Oh, yeah. They will now because of this reissue of the records. There have been so much turmoil about it, and I'm very happy that it happened. That's because of Andreas Wingårdh. And I have got very fine reviews from almost everywhere.
Yeah, it's beautiful music. I'm glad that I ran into it. Thank you for taking some time to speak with me today, and
yes.
Good luck with everything. It's beautiful music.
Thank you. Good luck to you too, and thank you for talking to me.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Carsten for his graciousness, the music, and keeping that spirit of jazz alive and reborn for all to dig. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or you can always visit the neonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.